Megumi isn't lost forever. Probably. Let me explain. The soul in Jujutsu Kaisen has been shown, talked about, and used many times, and we still don't have that much information about it. And let me use Mahito as an example for this. Mahito is one of the disaster cases and uses the power of his soul plus the manipulation of others' souls to damage them. And throughout the series, Mahito is an extremely powerful and unstoppable force who was progressing at an alarming rate, learning his domain expansion after a couple of months. Nanami even says that this is a child case spirit, and then further proven on this domain by copying a technique that Gojo Satoru used in the Shibuya incident. In case you overlooked this detail, Gojo Satoru is widely regarded as the strongest sorcerer in the verse, and he used a domain expansion of 0.2 seconds in the Shibuya incident, and he used this in order to absolutely decimate multiple scores of transfigured humans. Mahito, having been caught in this domain for the first and only time, was able to later on copy this exact feat and use his own domain expansion for 0.2 seconds as to avoid being eviscerated by Sukuna by touching his soul. And how this all came about was because when Mahito fought with Yuji, Mahito couldn't use idle transfiguration on him due to Sukuna being present inside Yuji as a vessel, meaning when Mahito used his attacks on Yuji, he had to touch Yuji's soul, and then he would inadvertently touch Sukuna's soul also. And as we obviously know, Sukuna did not take this lightly. Mahito's knowledge of the soul showed us so many things, some confirmed and some speculative. And one interesting thing that I think it did show us here was that when Mahito used idle transfiguration on a person who wasn't aware of that soul, that person would just get one-shotted. But then when he uses idle transfiguration on Nanami, Nanami was able to guard that and protect it, and he takes a direct hit of idle transfiguration. And this was due to Nanami, surprisingly, subconsciously protecting his soul, which implies that at somewhere in some level, Nanami had to have been aware of his soul. And I believe that as long as a piece of the body survives, the soul can always live on. Mahito showed us many things during his time in the series here, and something interesting was just after Gojo had been captured and was about to be sealed, Gojo seemingly spoke to Geto's soul here, and shortly after this, Kenjaku tells Mahito that the soul is the body and the body is the soul. And I believe that as long as a piece of that body survives, the soul can always live on. We can only look at the King of Curses here, and even Kenjaku, to give us a further point to nail this home here. Sukuna managed to traverse the ages by having his fingers preserved in grave wax and basically carrying his soul there. So when Yuji ingests the first finger of Sukuna, Sukuna's soul manifests and takes over Yuji's body for a short time before Yuji's soul is able to suppress him and take control of his own body back again. It's the same thing for Kenjaku here. We know that Kenjaku is realistically just a brain hopping from body to body here, which has allowed him to preserve his soul because technically a part of his body still exists and still survives. Another example of this would be Toji Zenin. When Toji Zenin was brought back in the Shibuya incident thanks to Granny Ogami's Seance technique, his body was recreated, and after a short time, Toji's soul ended up completely taking over the original user of this technique, with Ogami even saying how she only brought back the body's information. But like Kenjaku said, if the body is the soul and the soul is the body, then this would make no difference. Toji even says himself how this guy's soul just lost to my body, and I think what is more accurate here to say is that Toji's soul is the literal embodiment of Timothy fucking Jenkins with a PhD and run these fucking hands. No, but for real. The soul has been shown to us in many different forms, and for a lot of it, when it does come to two souls in one body, it seems as if the controller of the body needs to always be dominant over the suppressed soul, otherwise they will lose control over that body. Yuji and Sukuna are the biggest example of this, and now we have Megumi and Sukuna, who at the moment isn't really looking good for Megumi for that fight control right there. However, I'm not so convinced as to rule Megumi out just yet, purely because based on what we have saw with Geto and Kenjaku in Shibuya, for a brief moment, Geto was able to take control of a limb of Kenjaku's and try and inflict damage to him. And we saw something similar to this with Sukuna and Megumi. With Megumi dampening Sukuna's cursed energy output, his soul was fighting back. But Sukuna's plan to kill Tsumiki in front of Megumi seemingly made Megumi sink utterly to the bottom of Sukuna's soul. And Megumi right now has only one place to go from the abyss and the floor of the soul: up. There's a few events that could spark this event now and have the surge of Megumi's soul reappear, and I think the most prevalent one could be Gojo's unsealing. In a similar way, Gojo spoke to Geto's soul in the Shibuya incident. I think Gojo seeing Sukuna and Megumi's body could possibly reach out to Megumi and get Megumi's soul to bubble back up to the surface, and he may not be able to do it permanently, he may not be able to take over his soul and maybe even take control of his body ever again, but I feel like if this was to happen, Megumi would at least be able to do something that would hinder Sukuna in maybe a final fight between Gojo and Sukuna, and if it's not permanently, it would be at least enough for Gojo to land serious damage on the King of Cases. And that's why I'm not entirely convinced, after looking at it and reading back through the series now, I'm not entirely convinced that Megumi is gone forever. I feel like he may come back at some point, but we'll have to just wait and see. But that is everything from me. I hope you enjoyed this little theory on the souls of Jujutsu Kaisen here. If you did, please make sure to like the video because it really does help me out. And if you want to, subscribe because I get more Jujutsu Kaisen content all the time. And as always, I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much love, big kisses, peace.